Hi guys, this is Mac and we're back with another quick training video for you. Today we're talking about pianos and piano microphones. Traditionally here at HHAC we've been using condenser microphones on stands inside the lid of the piano, which is a traditional way of miking pianos. But unfortunately with a rock band on stage, the bleed that comes from the microphones and the necessity of carefully placing those microphones to get great articulation, definition, and attack from the piano so that the piano sits well in the mix just hasn't really been working out well for us. So we've gone a different route. We've installed a Shure Beta 91A inside the lid of the piano. So here we have the Shure Beta 91A boundary microphone, and as you can see, we've installed it inside the lid of the piano. We've got some heavy-duty Velcro that we've used to stabilize the microphone inside the lid. When this lid is down, the microphone is going to sit approximately here, and I don't know if you can see that or not, but this is going to sit about 3 to 4 inches back off of the hammers on the treble side of center of the keyboard. And we're focusing in on this area because this is typically where the pianists are playing, and it's also typically the place where you're going to get the most articulation, the most brightness, the most definition from the piano. We don't need a lot of the low end, and we don't need a lot of the high end. Typically those ends of the keyboard aren't used that much. Most pianists are playing squarely in the middle, and the definition, the articulation, the brightness, and the presence of the piano are going to be found in this area here. So this is a sort of a compromise for us, and we're finding that it's working really, really well in coming up with a well-balanced sound for the piano that's going to sit well in the mix, because typically on a Sunday morning we're using a full band up here. So we've got bass, we've got drums, we've got keyboards, we've got guitars, sometimes we've got horns and all kinds of other instruments up here. And it's very difficult to get the piano to sit in the mix, especially if the musicians haven't taken the time to arrange their material so that everybody's giving each other space in the arrangement. So to get the piano to sit well in the mix, we've decided to use the Beta 91A, and we've installed it in this position that I think is going to give a well-balanced sound to the piano. So what we're going to do now is we're going to go back to the mixing desk, and I'm going to show you how I've set up the channel strip, or at least the EQ for the channel strip on the Beta 91A, so that when you come in next time, you'll know that this is here. Just before we get back to the mixing desk, though, I should tell you that we really don't need to move this. The only thing you really need to do on a Sunday morning is come and check the piano, make sure that the boundary microphone hasn't fallen off the Velcro and onto the strings. So it's a good idea. I think it's a good idea to do pre-system checks every time you come in anyway. Come in and check all of the microphones that have been set up and have been left throughout the week, because sometimes things get bumped, or they get moved, or cables get detached, or a microphone falls off its Velcro. You just never know what could happen. So come in, check those microphones, check this microphone, make sure it's solid, make sure it's plugged in, and then you can go back to the mixing desk and I'll show you how to set it up there. Okay, we're back at the mixing desk right now. We're going to take a look at channel strip setup for the Beta 91A in the inside lid of the piano. Before I get into that, though, I should mention, and I didn't mention it when we were up on the stage, I should mention that the piano lid can stay closed. One of the things that our pianists have been saying is that with the position of the grand piano on the stage, it's really difficult for them to get line of sight with other musicians and with the congregation as well. So one of the things they've asked is there any way that we can get the lid down so that we can actually see people on the stage and in the congregation as well. So with the Beta 91A in the lid of the piano, that's completely possible. There's no need to raise the lid at all because it's a boundary mic, so it's picking up vibrations. So we can just drop the lid and keep it down. So when you come in on Sunday mornings, just go up on the stage, check that microphone, make sure it's secure, make sure it's plugged in, and you can leave the lid down, and that should keep the pianists happy because they've got line of sight now. Okay, on to the channel strip. We're plugged into channel 29 right now, And just starting at the top of the channel strip, the boundary mic, the Beta 91A, is a phantom powered microphone, so you need to have phantom power engaged. So that means you need to press the button down and make sure that the LED lights up so that we have phantom power applied to the microphone. Okay, the next thing we're going to do is we're going to adjust gain. And as I've mentioned before, you want to start with the rotary knob down, and as the pianist is line checking, bring the gain control knob up and listen through your cans. Listen to the tone of the instrument, listen for any noise on the line, and at the same time use your eyes to check the VU meter on the channel strip so that we're getting a good solid signal to noise ratio anywhere between 0 and peaking up at about plus 12 is just fine. So we've set our gain. Now we move down and we're going to apply a high pass filter. So we engage the high pass filter button by pressing it down, and I'm going to set the high pass filter at about 60. So anything below 60 hertz or so, we're just going to roll it off. We really don't need all of that sub-bass information for the piano. And it's just not going to sit well in the mix, not going to add much to your mix, just going to add a lot of clutter. So we're going to high pass filter at about 60. Then we're going to move down to the high frequency section. So we're going to apply a high shelf, and I'm dialing in at about 13, 12 and a half, between 12 and a half and 14K, and just adding a little bit of top end, also what we call transparency or sheen or air to the microphone. That just creates a little bit of space, a little bit of air around the microphone. It opens up the sound of the microphone a little bit. If you gain stage properly, I should mention this as well, that if you gain stage properly, as I've mentioned in other videos, the job of EQing becomes so much easier. So if you get a good solid signal to noise ratio, you don't need to move these controls very much before you'll notice a huge difference. So 3 dB of boost at about 13.5K at the top end, you're going to notice a huge difference. You're going to add some air, some sheen, some transparency to that sound. Okay, moving down into the high mid section, I'm moving into, moving into anywhere between 4 and 6K. So we'll start, will depend a little bit on what's happening up on the stage, what other instruments you have, will depend on what you decide to do with the high mid section. But if you need a little bit of extra presence, a little bit of extra sizzle from the piano, you can do a very, very small boost in the 4 to 6K range. It doesn't really need much. So if you're going to boost it all, just a little bit. I would even hesitate in boosting too much because the Beta 91A has a natural boost in around the 5 kilohertz section anyway. So if you take advantage of that, that boost is already there. So the 4 to 6K range, really, you would only use that, say, for instance, if you wanted to have the piano shine in a solo. So if the piano is being highlighted in a certain section of a song, you could use the 4 to 6K range to just add a little bit of extra presence, give it a 2 to 3 dB boost during the solo section, and it pops right out. Then bring it back in again, and it sits well in the mix. Moving into the low mid section, I'm at about 225 hertz right now, and I've cut about 5 to 6 dB at 225 hertz. This is, again, in our famous mud range section, and this is an area that's inhabited by bass guitar, by other keyboards, by electric guitar, and by toms and snare and so many other instruments. And we just really need to clean this up. There's also a natural feedback frequency at this particular area. So I've cut about 5 to 6 dB at 225 hertz, and that has cleaned up the signal significantly. So it sounds a lot tighter and a lot more articulate. And then down in the low frequency section, I've gone into about 125 hertz, and I've just rolled out about 3 dB. During solos, if you feel like you need a little bit of extra fullness and you want to create the effect of a fuller sound, you can just roll that back up to 0, and you'll find that you'll retrieve some of that lower end information as well. It really is going to depend on how the pianist is playing, what they're playing, how they're playing, and where they're playing it, and what's required of the song. So if the piano is really just spice for the band, they're not carrying the song, they're not a solo in the song, they're really just adding a little bit of spice, and you just want that piano to shine through in certain areas, then this setup is going to work well for you. If you are looking for more of a solo sound, then you might have to add a little bit of the bass information back in. During solos, you might need to add a little bit more presence in the high midsection. So it really depends on how the song's being arranged, what the piano is being used for. But I think that overall, if you set up your gain correctly, get a good solid signal to noise ratio, apply a high pass filter out anything below about 60 hertz, add a little bit of top end, add a little bit of high mids if you need it, and only when you need it. Cut in the mud range at about 225 hertz or so, 5 to 6 dB, and then cut a little bit of the bass frequencies when you need it, when you need the piano to sit well with the other instruments playing the drums and the bass and things like that, and then maybe recover a little bit of the low frequency information when the piano is soloing, and that should pretty much take care of it. You should get a decent sound out of the Shure Beta 91A on the inside lid of the piano, and for now I think that takes care of it. I would again encourage you to come in early the next time you're on sound and experiment with this microphone. Make sure that you're comfortable with it, make sure you know how it responds and what it can do for you and how it's going to sit in the mix. Don't come in at last minute and expect to be able to get your head around this. You really need to spend some time with it on your own, listening to it and getting a feel for how this microphone sounds and responds. And if you have any questions, of course, I'm always available. You can call me or email me or talk to Alex. We'd be glad to help if we can. So thanks again for taking the time to watch this training video, and I'd encourage you to watch it a couple more times to get your head around all this information. And until next time, we're heading into the holidays, so I hope you have a great holidays, and we'll see you again in the new year. Thanks again, and peace. This morning, and it's been working really, really well. So what we've got here is a Shure Beta 190. Let's start again. You can do it laser sharp. And the Shure Beta 91A. What was I going to say?
That was so awesome.